Okay, we'll get started again after the 15-minute break. So our final speaker for this session is Sophia, who's going to be telling us about population dynamics in a Brazilian frog. Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you. Well, hello. I think many of us are familiar to this kind of situation in fieldwork. Well, if you go to the work at night, I think we'll share the office with spiders. And it's been not longer than a bit longer than 2 years that I'm able to spot this little frog. So, and I decided to cross the world to talk to you about it. Yeah. I think we all know that populations of amphibians are really vulnerable to climate change, and populational declines and extinctions are being reported all over the world. In Brazil, we've got two hotspots for conservation, which are Cerrado and the Atlantic Forest. That's the one I'm going to talk about. And there we have estimated loss of more than 70% of its original range. So that's a big loss of habitat, and loss of habitat is one of the most threats that go on frogs. I don't know. They are really vulnerable because of the habitat loss. And in the Atlantic forest, we have many species, and most of them are endemic. So in that biome, we have really high endemism, and our species is one of them. Its name is Boana poaju. Boana poaju is a stream-dwelling frog that was described in 2008, so it's a recent description. And its oviposition is there one. It's underwater, and it's endemic to a mountain range region within an area less than 100 square kilometers. And there are few studies about the species. So I highlighted some of the stuff that make it really important for us to know about it. And riparian species are more vulnerable than terrestrial ones. For that, we started a monitoring study, and we asked what are the populational parameters of Boana poaju, and how do these parameters vary over time? So we don't know much about this species, and we've got to start at some point. For that, we studied one of the populations. So this was the range of the Atlantic forest, not the actual one. And this is a state park in the state of Santa Catarina in South Brazil. And that's where we made our study, in a stream there. And we monitored a population of Boana poaju from August 2017. From August of last year, we actually are still doing this work. And we used a marker recapture method. And we measured, weighted them, and tagged, and then released the individuals. And we also took ambiental parameters, measures. And this survey the surveys were made in a stream every 2 weeks. So in each survey we go or up to the river or down to the river. And for our analysis, we used this model that considers the population open between stations and closed within our sample periods, secondary samples. And this gives us a most biological approach to the animal, because we know that this population wouldn't be close. We couldn't consider it close all the time. And this is the parameters we estimated, and for that we consider there is a superpopulation, bigger, and this is our sample area. And the estimated parameters were number of available individuals within the study area, and then we extended it to the super area, the superpopulation. Apparent survival between seasons, so the animal didn't emigrated permanently or neither died, and the probability of temporary emigration. So there is a difference. They consider a difference between an animal that was unobservable and continued unobservable, and between the animals that we didn't observe, but they were observed the previous season. And the sigma phi would be the universal probability of survival between seasons. I don't know what's wrong here. But in 2 years of study, we took some measures. We had a few females, maybe because of our sample method, but for that data, we can see that females were bigger and heavier. And we found 161 males, and 43%, almost half of them, were recaptured at least once. 2 individuals were recaptured 7 and 8 times. The one that survived, like we saw, in a period that a year. So it's a long time, and we think they survived for at least a year and maybe more. They were always at the same time. So I know it's too much information, but let's go by parts. So with these results, we can see that they emigrate. So and the parameters, the rate didn't change much between stations, and there's a constant probability of apparent survival also. And the universal survival was 26%. So they basically summarize all these other probabilities in one result. And this would be a capture history. I know that might look a little confusing, but we can see there are 2 major groups and like a hole in the middle. And this hole was a winter where we only found 1 individual. And even though we didn't have like a relationship between the environmental parameters and the abundance of individuals, we didn't have a correlation. We still think that's because the winter was really dry and cold compared to the other one. And this is the estimated evidence for the study area, and this would be for the superpopulation. Like we have 2 peaks, and we think it's because of the method we used to estimate. Like here is because it was the beginning of the study, and here would be because of the winter where we had only one individual found. And it isn't a big population, so and we didn't find like much variance between the seasons. So we didn't find much changes in our parameters along the time, but we are measuring ecological parameters, and sometimes they have long-term effects. So we did saw that winter where we only found one individual. So we need to continue this study to know what's going on, because in Brazil there's much environmental threats, and we don't know what's going on with our populations of amphibians. And we have a high level of endemism, and we need to understand how they work to be able to do something if something happens. But yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. And this kind of work, it's like really special, because we normally we are not able to do this kind of studies, a long time monitoring study. So this resort, he gave 2 scholarships for environmental internship, where we do research inside the park, and we work for them in an ecological track, guide, that stuff. So and our professor, that he really managed the things for us to get this kind of studies, even though we have other places where these species are, but we don't know much. Like that occupancy area, we don't actually know if it's actually that one. And our volunteers that actually spend time and money to be there, and it's in the weekends, so we know how it's like that. So they pay to be there. Like, it's a really work group, this monitoring, and we as hard as, and even though that's been difficult, we'll do the best to keep this study going on. And that's it.